Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Near Memo. I think this is episode 125, if I'm not mistaken. And David, Mike, and Greg talking about search, social, commerce through a local lens. And today we're going to be talking about how small businesses discover payment solutions. I'm going to DSA and P2B, which are changing acronyms, changing the way we live and work. And then finally, we'll be talking about a federal court decision that happened this week that affirmed the Copyright Office's determination that AI-generated works are not entitled to copyright protection. That's a sort of a broader statement than the reality, but we'll unpack it. So first off, David, you wanted to talk about a Breeden survey about how small businesses discover payment solutions, and what did that reveal to you?
Yeah, so this was specific to payment solutions, but I think is sort of broadly applicable to SaaS products, at least at a directional level, which was search was far and away the number one way that at least VSBs and SBs, so any business with fewer than 100 employees, search was far and away the number one way that they discovered these solutions. So even ahead of peers and word of mouth, which actually would have surprised me considerably, especially at the VSB level. Search really is the driving force here, and social was way down the list. I mean, Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram were all single digits in terms of, these numbers added up to well over 100%. So this wasn't just like pick one and that's it. It's like social just seems to not really play much of a role in terms of influencing these at least payment solution decisions. And there's a couple things here that I wanted to talk about in relation to the findings. The first is just I do feel like there is a perception at a lot of SaaS companies, myself having worked at one which was very pro search as a driving force in terms of bringing in new customers, and one where search was not a priority. And in fact, the executive leadership just sort of didn't believe that search still worked to bring in customers. And I just don't, I think that search, even though it's changing and it's arguably getting harder and everything else, like the fact that I don't think you can overlook it in your sort of marketing mix if you are a software vendor. The flip side of that is, like, if you're a startup, you just need a longer track record in order for search to be successful for you. So you're sort of behind the eight ball a little bit if you are a new startup. And the faster you start on a search strategy, the faster you will actually see it pay dividends. So the longer you put it off, you're just sort of delaying when you're going to be paying the piper in terms of not attracting the customers that your competitors are. So that's kind of the first piece of it that I wanted to highlight. The second piece is we are a VSB ourselves, right? Near Media, a VSB, and I have been doing research for a couple of software tools that we need to sort of run our business. And it's just shocking to me that the number of sites out there that aren't considering the sort of, search discovery and wanting to make a purchase decision all in the same session. And the number of SaaS companies that are selling to businesses of our size end up being, $100 to $500 a month, recurring subscriptions, that these guys, it seems to be the preponderance of these companies still gate their pricing behind a sales conversation and still, in many cases, insist on a demo in order to purchase. And that is just wildly out of touch with what the actual purchase experience is, or what the actual purchase experience should be for a lot of these, especially VSB and I think even SB customers. So I would just say, if you are a SaaS company, the two takeaways from this study are, number one, you got to invest in search as a channel that's going to bring you customers. Number two, think about the experience of someone who has discovered your product from a search and is not necessarily looking for a sales conversation. They're just looking to get a task accomplished immediately.
Well, there's a ton of data that supports what you're saying. I mean, there's a lot of survey data that shows that small businesses, all B2B customers, are doing a lot more research on their own. They want to do research on their own. and they don't want to talk to salespeople except at the very, very end of the process, if then. And so this is a laggard mindset, that you need to involve a salesperson. That's the only way you're going to sell something. Um, that there's some inertia around that behavior. I also think that um, I, I just, as somebody who was involved when I was at Uberall in software decision making, it's just really a nightmare for customers. There's just very few reliable sources of information. It's just there's just a kind of cacophony of competing claims, and I was doing some consulting for a software company last year that had marketing automation software, and I had to do a competitive analysis and other things as part of that. And just these so many software companies sound the same, make the same claims, use the same language. It's just craziness, and small businesses are in the worst position to penetrate those claims. And it just seems like completely the state of nature, out there. I mean, we're 25 years into the internet, and it's still really, really challenging to get trustworthy information, to pierce all of the jargon. It's very frustrating and difficult. If you're a small business owner who wants to do what you're describing, which is just has a task, has a need, they want to get something that's going to solve that problem, it's just nightmarish, I think.
Yeah, this weekend at a birthday party I went to, one of my daughter's friends has recently bought into an AC company, she and her husband, and they were paying $500 for an SEO platform. This is literally a 3-person operation. And I looked at the SEO platform, and it did things like business listings and pinned review locations. Like if you did a job in these 5 different places, it would pin the review. It's like they were paying for stuff that had that they'd already done 10 times over or offered no value, and they were paying $500 a month for it, and they had no clue, just totally clueless. So not only does somebody have to break through this bad sales process, when they do, somebody sells them on this thing that they don't need. It's reprehensible, the state of it.
Well, it's almost impossible for business owners to penetrate these claims, and there are sites like Capterra and G2 and Trustpilot and a whole bunch of others that purport to offer ratings and reviews of software, but a lot of that is pay to play. It's just there's just no trustworthy resource online that you can go to get real information.
Yeah. And I think that shows up, those types of sites do show up in this Freedom survey. It's like a quarter of people, considered those influential in their decision. But I think you're right, Greg. Like people are sort of seeing through even these review sites as like, okay, these guys are paying their customers to leave a review on Capterra or whatever, and that's not even trustworthy. So
when I was at Uberall, we would have some sales rep from I don't remember which one it is. I'll defame them both equally. one or the other, G2 or Capterra, and they would prompt us, hey, you don't have that many reviews. You need to go out and get more reviews. So then the business goes out and selectively finds customers who are going to say favorable things, and, generates a bunch of reviews from selectively from favorable customers. And then, they do, in fairness to those platforms, they do have critical reviews, and people do leave reviews that are not prompted by the customer themselves. But you can't, that's not a representation of people's actual experience, And if you look at the Scott Brinker charts, which seem to get more and more bloated every year, the MarTech, chief MarTech stuff, it's like, I don't know how many, 11,000, 12,000, 13,000 companies. And it's not getting any better.
But as David pointed out, only 25% of these very small businesses actually make it to Capterra anyways, and it all happens in search regardless. And so because of a lack of time, again, the people I spoke to just were so in the weeds, they could not. And so they're going to go to search. They're going to do the quickest way. And it seems to me an easy win for these SaaS companies to have a ungated price and a compelling sales proposition.
Well, and
good,
video,
good
and,
title
and,
tags,
and enough resources, video, whatever, is appropriate to help people, as David was saying, make a decision in a single session or very quickly in a very compressed time frame.
Right.
You know.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.